Hey friends, welcome back. This is Nadia from She Builds Again, and today we're talking about something important to our faith walk. Why I believe that God meets us right in the middle of the mess and not just in the polished, beautiful miracles. And so, if you've ever felt like your life is too messy for God, this one is for you. I'm going to first talk about why do we often think that God only shows up in miracles? I think sometimes we see all of these miracles in the Bible and we start to hope that God is going to show up in these miraculous ways in our lives as well. And sometimes He does. We hear stories all the time about people who had cancer and then all of a sudden it is healed. I would say in my own life, I've never had anything huge happen, but I have had small signs that God is still with me, even in the darkest of moments. So I want to share a story that happened to me, and I had found out that my dad had stage 4 cancer. He had liver cancer. I was surprised by how late in the game he had found out and how quickly it took his life. I didn't want to have to say goodbye so quickly. I felt like there were so many things unsaid. There were so many dreams that I had to experience with my dad, like him walking me down the aisle, him meeting his grandkids, all of these things. Even today, I wish I could just call him. I think that he would have given me some really sound advice for a lot of the challenges that I've gone through. And I feel like he would have been someone in my corner throughout all of the highs and lows that I've been through over the last 13 years. But long story short, we lost him very suddenly in October of 2013. I had to leave Bermuda, which is where I was living, and take a flight back to Canada. I had gone up to see him and spend time with him while I was in the hospital, but we had to go back up for his funeral. And I remember my cousin was with me at the airport, and I just felt so forgotten. I felt so sad. I felt so lost and lonely. And I checked in for my flight and I went outside and I was just in this woe is me mindset. Like I just couldn't figure out what was next for my life. I was just really heartbroken. And I remember I had gotten my boarding pass and my cousin was looking at it and she was like, wow, I think you're in first class. And I was like, no, I'm not in first class. Nothing good ever happens to me. That was literally what I was thinking. And lo and behold, I don't know why, but I was bumped to first class for the first and only time really in my entire life. I know that seems like a really silly thing to feel like God's presence, but I really did feel His presence in that moment because in a time where I was feeling like my life was a mess, like God had forgotten me, like no one cared, I felt like this was God's hug. I felt like this was God grabbing my hand and saying, we're going to walk through this together. You're going to be okay. I'm going to be your father. I'm going to walk you through everything that you're going through. I'm going to be there in all those moments that you are going to miss your dad. And that was just a bit of reassurance that good things are happening around me. Even in the hard times, even in the grief, even in the sadness and depression, I have to take the time to not only be optimistic instead of pessimistic, but also to believe that there are small mercies and small beauties and small gifts everywhere in every day if you choose to look. And so that was a huge lesson for me in one of my absolute darkest moments because I really did start to see that God is for me even when I don't believe that He cares. He does care. He cares about the details. I would say there's also been some small little moments in my life where God has shown up in my finances. And I think finances in particular is an area that I've struggled to trust God. I struggled because I've always been in careers that don't make loads of money. I've always been very frugal, but I've also been someone that just felt like I can do with a little. Long story short, one thing that's been really tough is just tithing. Because imagine making what you feel like is just enough, and then you have to give 10% of that, or you should give 10% of that. And so it's been a kind of wrestle with God over that a lot of times. But what I can say for sure is in the 7 years that I ran my business, when I tithed, I always made more money. I always had a successful year. I had my most successful years in business. It was almost crazy because I would sometimes tithe and literally be at my last wit's end because nothing else was working. I was doing all the marketing, I was contacting people, I was emailing past clients asking if they needed help with anything. I was doing all the things that my rational brain could think of that they tell you to do, and it wasn't working. No clients were coming. And then I would tithe, and literally within the week or two, someone would contact me out of the blue. Someone I had never worked with, someone that I didn't even know knew my name, would come out of the woodwork and offer me a chance to apply for a position. And so I had these different consulting jobs that I had within my company, and I was able to get these huge consulting contracts, literally two of them that came out of the blue. I hadn't gone to seek after them. I didn't hustle. I didn't try to force my way in. They literally came to me because of, I believe, tithing and because of God's grace. And so those have been some of the amazing small miracles that I've seen. I didn't see $100,000 drop from the sky or anything, but it was in those times where I felt like God wasn't there, but I still acted in faith that I saw God's hand. And so those stories are things that I carry with me to this day. I try to remind myself of them on occasion because God does show up and God has been faithful in my life. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is, what does it mean for your faith journey? I would say what it's meant for my faith journey is that it's allowed me to continue walking in trust that if I surrender, if I do my small part, that God does the rest. And so I am even living that out now. I'll be honest, we've been through a really tough year this year. It literally felt like everything that could go wrong went wrong. And it was the small things that really started to destroy my confidence and just make me feel like things are so hard and how do I get out of these situations? Even last night, I started a new Bible study where I am literally going to go through Psalms for the next, hopefully, 150 days or so. And what's so cool is that on my first day of trying to do this, trying to get back into God's Word, because it's been a long time since I've gotten back into God's Word. I've prayed, I've journaled, but I haven't been faithful in going to His Word because I felt very disconnected from religion. But on the first day I did it, do you know what happened? We got some really amazing news that we've been hoping for. I had to hug my husband when he told me. I was like, oh my gosh. It doesn't solve all of our problems, but it's one piece of the continuing puzzle that we're trying to solve so that we can get into a better place financially and just be in a better place for our family and as a married couple and just continue to grow and build. And so I am hopeful that if I continue to just be in my word, not to say that I'll get miracles every day, but I'm hopeful that if I continue to take the small step, that God does the rest. And I hope, and I will come back and report to you guys as to how it goes over the next couple months. And so one thing I will say, if you are in a place where life feels messy, do not wait until everything is perfect and neat to invite God in. The mess is actually where intimacy and transformation often happen. If this encouraged you, I want you to hit subscribe and share this video with a friend who needs to know that God has not forgotten them. I want you to remember that you are never too messy for God. All we need to do is our small part and He does the rest. And so trust, walk with me. If you are in a place where you have been discouraged and lost, please challenge yourself like I'm challenging myself. Take the one small step, read the one verse, pray, do the one journal page, and start to see and look for signs that God is still with you, because He is. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Talk to you soon.